themselves. They made their remarks during public participation. Their remarks have not been taken on board. There's a very big problem in the country. Overtaxation has brought down, the collections from KRA and has closed down businesses. And businesses, private businesses are the ones which employ the youth. So our youths are idle, they are jobless, and they have nowhere to go other than to the streets. And it's a high time the government listened to what Kenyans want. It is very absurd that 2 Kenyans have died in this. No Kenyans should die in this. These protesters are peaceful. They have a code of conduct. They have given notice. So what the police cannot do is to give them protection. And I don't believe they want to destroy anybody's thing or come to parliament to harm anybody. I don't think so. They just want their voice to be heard. And it is very important that Kenyans, are heard. And that's why they should exercise also the other power which the public have, which is to recall the members of parliament and collect signatures against these members so that they can tame them. And although some clauses which deal with recalling were held to be unconstitutional some time back, immediately after you exercise your recalling, then you can go to court and enforce it. So it is possible to pull out dishonest, corrupt members of parliament out of the house through the people. It's the other option they have. And this has to move simultaneously with the demonstrations. The demonstrations are the right of all the young people in the country, of all the people in the country. It's a way of expression. The power under Article 1 belongs to the people.
Thank you.
And they can donate it or recall it.
Or recall it. Okongo Mugeni, I just wanted you to just make it very limpid and clear for us, especially as far as the Public Order Act is concerned. Because we have expressions also from Azimio in a rejoinder saying that that particular act is antiquated, and what the Interior Cabinet Secretary is calling for is does not really hold at the end of the day. What is the clear position?
Debal, CS Kindiki is a professor of law, and I want to trust that he has taken time to read and internalize the Kenyan Constitution 2010. My reading of the Constitution, especially Chapter 14, that deals with security issues, the CS internal security has got no powers, no constitutional powers to direct the Inspector General on how he should enforce the law against any Kenyan. The only power, and Manzo is a lawyer here, he can agree with me, the only power that the CS has under Article, I believe, 245, is to give policy directions to the police. Article 245 gives the commanding powers to the Inspector General of Police. In fact, Kenyans were so careful to the extent that they put limitations, clear limitations, on the CS Interior. Number one, the Constitution states in black and white that the CS Interior, in Article 245, the CS Interior cannot give instructions to the police to commence investigations against any Kenyan. You can read it.
245.
245, read it, it's there. The second one is that the Constitution provides, again in black and white, that CS Interior cannot give directions to the police to enforce the law. It's there. You can read for Kenyans.
Yeah, but 245, what article?
Sub-Article 3.
Sub-Article 3.
Yes. You can read it to
the
Kenyans.
Kenya Police and Administration Police shall each be headed by the Deputy Inspector General, appointed by the President in accordance with the recommendations of the National Police Service Commission.
Just go to 245.
The Cabinet Secretary responsible for police services may lawfully give a direction to the Inspector General with respect to any matter of policy for the National Police Service, but no person may give a direction to the Inspector General with respect to A, the investigation of any particular offenses or offenses, B, the enforcement of the law against any particular person or persons, or C, the employment, assignment, promotion, suspension, or dismissal of any member of a national police service. 5, any direction given to the Inspector General by the Cabinet Secretary responsible for police services under Clause 4, or any direction given to the Inspector General by the Director of Public Prosecutions under Article... I seem to be missing some pages here.
The DPP will be under
215, yeah. This is a bit, it's not very legible.
DPP
Right.
will be under 157. So what I'm telling
157.
you... Yes, what I'm telling you is that the CS Interior has got no powers to direct the Inspector General of Police how to enforce the law. The commanding structure is solely in the hands of the Inspector General of Police, under the same article I've referred you to, under 245. Now, the only person, and I want Kenyans to listen to me very carefully, the only person who has powers over and above the Inspector General is an institution called the National Security Council, under Article 240. And that council is headed by none other than the President himself, William Ruto. And Article 240, as a telling provision, it says that the Security Council has supervisory powers over the national security organs. So unless Professor Kindiki tells us that he has been directed by the National Security Council, because he's a member, he sits there. Among the 9 members of the National Security Council, one of the people who sit there is the CS Interior. So unless he's making a communication on a decision that has been made by the National Security Council, aided by the President, exercising their supervisory powers over our national security organs. But he himself, as a CS Interior, he can only issue directions on a policy. For example, you can issue a policy saying, on demonstrations, we expect the police to abide by UN, United Nations Code of Conduct on police officers. You know, in 1979, the UN State Assembly of Parties met and they developed a code of conduct on police officers. And what should be relevant to us as a country is that when you are having demonstrations, what the UN expects our police to do is, first, people who are quelling riots should be uniformed. We do not want a situation where police officers mingle with the demonstrators, abduct them, because we have seen that happening before, abduct demonstrators, and you cannot pick the identity of those police officers. What the UN Code of Conduct on Police Officers requires is that you quell riots using a platoon of police officers. If, for example, the platoon has 20 police officers, one of them must be the commander of that platoon, of the 20. So is the commander is the one who will direct them when they should push back the demonstrators. He's the one who can make a decision when there is a threat to peace or when the rioters have used excessive force against the police officers. He can now direct one of the people in that platoon to either use tear gas or use clubs to quell the demonstration or to restore peace. Then among that platoon, there should be a team, again uniformed, that can effect an arrest against demonstrators. Where you have a commander among these 20 is to deal with a situation like what happened to Masai, the young man. The young man was shot using a live bullet. Now, if we are doing an investigation, we should be able to ask our police force to tell us.
Police
in the
service.
platoon, police service, not force, sorry. Thank you for correcting me. The police service. We should be able to ask our national police service to tell us when Masai was shot, who was the person commanding maybe the first platoon, because there can be up to 10 platoons of police officers deployed to deal with the demonstrators. And the main purpose there is to ensure that there is peace, okay? The demonstrators have a right to demonstrate, and the role of the police is to ensure that there is peace. In fact, if you go to, I believe, Article 239 of our Constitution, that creates the 3 security organs, the Defense Forces, NSIs, and the National Police Service, it is prescriptive. That article is prescriptive. Number one, it tells the police that when they are enforcing the law, they must do whatever they are doing to quell riots within the confines of the law. They must respect democracy. They must respect human rights. They must respect fundamental rights and the freedoms of Kenyans. Then the article goes further and says, while enforcing the law, the police should not act in a partisan manner. They should not enforce the law to further a political interest or a political cause. 3, which is most important, they should not prejudice. The word used is prejudice. They should not prejudice a political interest or a political cause being exercised using a right conferred by this Constitution. So when you are stepping out to say that you want to restore order when there is a demonstration, you cannot curtail the right that is in Article 37, the right to picket, the right to demonstrate, the right to present petitions. So I want to caution Kindiki. There are many cabinet ministers in the world who have found themselves in problems because they have been overzealous in trying to apply the law against people who are trying to air some disaffection or grievance against the government of the day. And I want Kindiki to go down memory lane and inquire what happened to a minister who was called Tohami Khalid in Libya. That was a minister in charge of Internal Security Agency of Libya between 2011 and 2017. And anytime Libyans came out to express their protestation against the government of Muammar Gaddafi, that minister is the one used to organize security officers to abduct and rape protesters, have them arrested and tortured in police cells, held in Comunicando, and others were executed. Manzo will tell you that the ICC indicted that particular CS. In Sudan, we had Rahim Hussein, again, minister in charge of internal security. And they did very bad things in Darfur while serving as Minister for Internal Security under the government of Omar Bashir. That minister was also indicted by ICC. So if Kindiki is not careful, if the directions that he gave yesterday lead to deaths or abductions of our youths, the blame will be at his doorstep.
But of course we have the abductions which is ongoing. We have the one that is
a number of our youths have been abducted.
We've just read about the clip of how the evidence is there, right? Just around here in South B, abducted by...
Yeah. So if we as a country, you know, the youths have told us that we should not sit back, raise our hands in lamentation.
Indeed.
The point I wanted to make is, what I expected to hear from Professor Kindiki is to tell us what is the government of the day, which is part of, has done to account for the whereabouts of these Kenyans.
For the abductions?
Yes. Yes. Otherwise, as going by the 2 cases I've given you, we shall hold him responsible. He's the minister heading the internal security sector in this country. The statement he should have made yesterday is to give us an account on the whereabouts of the youths who have been abducted. And reliable sources, when you hear people like former Chief Justice Emeritus, Dr. Willie Mutunga speaking, fingers are being pointed against security organs of this country. So that is what Kindiki should have concentrated on, not telling us that he's invoking the public officer, Public Order Act.
Order Act.
That is a draconian piece of legislation. It does not marry with the 2010 Constitution, and I don't think you can use that piece of legislation to curtail the rights that Kenyans are invoking under Article 37
Professor
of the
Law,
Constitution.
it should be all the wiser.
It should be.
No,
It should
as
be.
far as the law is concerned.
It should be the wise. And you know, Dibal, let me tell you, I feel so sad at times, and I wonder whether, Kindiki is a student of history. Uprisings by people who are protesting against an injustice or against deteriorating standards of living. And for Kenya, who are invoking their sovereignty under the Constitution, are people you don't joke with. These are people you should sit back and listen to, hear what are their grievances, and look for solutions. Because this Constitution does not make Manzo as an individual sovereign. This Constitution, when it was crafted, made the people of Kenya sovereign. The only other person who is sovereign is the Constitution itself. Only two entities. Not even the president is sovereign. Okay? Not the military, only the people of the Republic of Kenya and this Constitution. And let Kindiki study history in Africa and out of Africa. You can study history in Asia, America, wherever. People power is not something to joke with. You know how powerful the former president, Hosni Mubarak of Egypt was. That was a dictator, powerful person who used to crush people. But when demonstrators stepped out in protest, he could not stop them. In fact, it's his deputy president who made an announcement that I and the president have now resigned and given over the mantle of power to the military. No, I think they gave it to the speaker. Okay? Tunisia. When the people stepped out to the streets, the president had no choice other than to flee the country. You know the history of Bashir in Sudan. And you know how Bashir was feared. The demonstrations in Sudan started like a small protest by people because of the skyrocketing prices of essential commodities, rising cost of living, And Bashir tried to be repressive, but the people overwhelmed him and he had to leave, okay? If you go to Asia, you know what happened to Ferdinand Marcos in the Philippines. He was removed by people who are protesting against unbearable cost of living. Now, if you want to even understand what the power of, people exercising civil liberties, coming out to demonstrate, you can even go to the US, what Martin Luther King was able to achieve in America. He led a group of over 200,000 Americans protesting against segregation in 1963.
Thank you.
And the Americans responded by passing the Civil Rights Act in 1965. So what we are saying is, when people are coming out and raising grievances, you don't respond by threats. You respond by sitting back. People responded to Martin Luther King by coming out in 1965 and enacting the Civil Rights Act to stop segregation. The Philippines has never been the same since the uprising against Ferdinand Marcos. The Philippines people came out and transformed that country into a powerful democracy. And you have seen successive democratic governments being elected in the Philippines. In Kenya, instead of Kindiki coming out with threats, what I expect the president to have done by today is to give us a roadmap on how he's going to respond to the grievances that have been put on the table by, you call them Gen Z. Gen Z. And the issues, you can list them. Dibal. These are not people who are just making noise. They have given grievances to the leadership of this country. So I expect the president to also respond one by one to each of those grievances.
Dan Mazo, let's talk about the recalling of MPs, because I think also that is on top of the agenda, and they've noted some of these MPs who voted yes. They have their numbers, they have they also have their names. You say, looking at the Constitution, there's a tripping wire as far as recalling the MPs is concerned, because looking at the sheer number of them that are really coming out in force, they are able to go full steam ahead and recall some of the MPs as well. And most of them, even they don't want to comment about the finance bill as it stands. Just having some of them to come on the show also has been a pain point for, a challenge for some of them. They want to see how the situation will go, because this is putting them at the precipice as it stands. So if I want to recall my MP, what is the way forward?
Yes,
I collect the signatures?
Yes, just before
then they have to be verified with the IBC. IBC is not now in place. What happens? Is that also maybe a pain point that
yes,
we need to...
Just before I come to the recalling, there is something Omugeni has mentioned, and I want to tell you the law which applies. You see, Kindiki is trying to use the Public Order Act, which is a colonial act, but the Public Order Act works with the Penal Code, and it has a very elaborate way of dealing with demonstrations, though it was very old. And then it has regulations. Some of the last regulations were made by former AG Amos Wako, senator, former senator for Busia, 20 years ago. You know, there's a time we had similar, so he made regulations. Now, these regulations under Statutory Instruments Act usually expire after 10 years, and Kindiki's regulations have expired. He's a very experienced lawyer and a professor of law, and he knows it very well. The regulations he's purported to make now are illegal in themselves. So you cannot make regulations yesterday. They have not been processed by Parliament, the committees of delegated legislation in the Senate and in the National Assembly. He hasn't processed, so he cannot stand on whatever he has guided yesterday. But the old regulations and the old laws say that even when demonstrators have come, you have to have that commander the Honorable Mugen was talking about. Then you allow them to demonstrate. If the demonstration turns chaotic, and these ones of the Generation Z are not turning chaotic, then you must issue a declaratory order, which is loud and clear. So you must announce in a loudspeaker several times that these demonstrations have become unruly, and therefore you are given notice to disperse. Without that, they will never win any of these single cases that are framed against the young people. They will go to court, and the young people will be released. And therefore, the police have not been following even the old act, which, leave alone the new act under the Constitution and Article 7. Now, so when we come to recalling, sorry.
No, yeah, before you go to recalling, because now I think we need also to latch deeply on that. Bit 630.
Yes.
You say this is an old, archaic legislation that we have right now. So where does it stand as far as 630 that now you should stop your demonstrations? Does it still stand? Can someone really challenge that?
Well, you know, demonstrations beyond
6:30 p.m.
6:30 are illegal. Demonstrations are done during the day, so it's good for people to know about...
No, is that within the Public Order Act?
It is in the Public Order Act.
But you claim to be archaic.
I'm saying...
So is it applicable?
I'm saying the Public Order Act was made in the colonial days. It was dealing with the demonstrations which were leading to the independence of the country. But unfortunately, that's the law we still have. The other law is the Penal Code, which is as old as it can get. I'm just saying, after independence and after new constitution, there are no new laws.
No, but when you say that it is illegal, I don't understand. You say, oh, this is archaic, but it's still, it's archaic, but it's applicable.
It is a law which is applicable. And I'm saying even that applicable law is reasonable. It is not what Kindiki and the company are doing now. And in fact, the person to blame is not Kindiki.
But
the Inspector General must take full responsibility of the deaths which have happened. And in fact, according to what has happened, the person who shot the young man said, let him die. Meaning this person should be charged with murder in the minimum. But I'm saying, even as bad as that law may be old, let me withdraw archaic. Let me say old law which has not been amended. It is still a reasonable law. It goes beyond the regulations which Kindiki is trying to make.
So there's no debate actually you're having. The law is law. If it's still
saying
the Ten Commandments also, they are cake, but they are still applicable as well today. It's still low.
I'm just saying you must give proclamation. If the commanding officer doesn't do proclamation, he himself has broken the law. He must announce the demonstrations are over and give people time to clear. If he doesn't do that and they go on to kill people, they cannot now plead another justification. You know under the penal code, if in a situation like this, actually after proclamation, if you are injured, there is no recourse.
Right. I'm a bit disturbed as well that we have IPOA, which, of course, we can see through social media or is issuing statements or we are on it, but we've not seen them really coming and giving even a press conference regarding these abductions. These are some of the institutions that we need to see that they are vocal at this point so that we know where is the strength.
Why are you going to IPOA?
Excuse me.
Why are you going to IPOA? You know, the Gen Z, you call them Gen Z.
Gen Z.
The Gen Z demonstrations have taught us one thing, that we as a country should always remind ourselves that we have a constitution, okay? And we must hold each and every person exercising powers under this constitution accountable. If you go to the constitution, chapter 14, dealing with issues touching on our security, national security, we have National Police Service Commission. Am I right, Manzo?
Yes, yes.
And in Article 246, National Police Service Commission has been given powers to exercise discipline over the National Police Service, including relieving them from duties, of course, following due process. Now, why are we going to IPOA before we place questions on the doorsteps of National Police Service Commission? Because by now, if the person that pulled the trigger on Masai using live bullets, which I believe it goes against all international tenets of police conduct. You're not supposed to use live bullets against unarmed demonstrators. The question we should be asking as we are debating this morning, and you know, if I were you, I should have called two guys from Gen Z to occupy these empty seats. Because the other guys will not come here to talk about finance bill. They know that they can be on this show and people will be in their offices demonstrating. You should have brought Gen Z generations to sit here and tell us what the issues are. Forget about these older people. They are not in sync with the people. What has the National Police Service Commission done to discipline the police officers who have acted contrary to their law as of today? That's the question we should be asking. You can read Article 246, because you may accuse me of just saying things. Let me read it for you. Look, or you read it to the country. Are you there? 246.3.
I'm getting there.
Yeah?
246.3. 246.3. B.
Yeah, read it. The powers of National Police Service Commission. 243.3.
Observing.
The commission shall.
The commission shall. Then be, yeah? Observing due process, exercise disciplinary control over and remove persons holding or acting in offices within the service.
Yeah.
And perform any other functions prescribed by the national.
So, Dibal, by now, the National Police Service should have commenced disciplinary action against police officers who may have misconducted themselves or acted outside the confines of the law in trying to quell these demonstrations. They should even have started a process of relieving them from serving within the force before we go to IPOA.
Indeed.
Because IPOA will be dealing with issues of prosecution, okay? And I had you asking Honorable Manzo about the DPP, okay? Under Article 157, Manzo, you can correct me if I'm not quoting the right article. Under Article 157, the DPP comes in only after an offense has been committed. The powers given to the DPP, Director of Public Prosecution, is to direct the police to undertake an investigation if he believes that a particular offense has taken place.
That's the article.
Is it? Yes.
157.
I don't know which powers the DPP is using by coming out to tell the young people that, you know, if you go to the streets tomorrow and you break the law, I'll come after you. He only comes in to direct an investigation. So what I could have expected from my good friend Ingonga is to direct the National Police Service Commission to investigate whether there was misuse of police powers by the officers who killed Masai, that young boy. Because at least in that particular one, we can, with reasonable credibility, tell the public that an offense may have happened. Because a police officer used a live bullet and shot an armed demonstrator. If you go through the statement that was issued yesterday, what offenses have the youth of Kenya committed for the DPP to invoke his powers under Article 157? My answer would be none.
No.
Okay? Have the National Police Service slept on their powers? The answer is yes. And you know the composition under 246. You know, Kenyans were so careful when they were crafting this constitution. The creation of the National Police Service in Article 246 was well thought out and carefully crafted. The chairman is supposed to be a person qualified to be appointed a judge of the High Court of Kenya. Then you have two police officers who have served the country, they have given distinguished service and retired at senior level. Those are some of the members of National Police Service Commission. Then you have three other Kenyans who have served, you can read it there, who have served the public with distinction. So the people who are sitting in National Police Service, and then you have the Inspector General also sits there. These are Kenyans who have given distinguished service to the country. And we expect them to act without fear or favor and to apply the law without fear or favor. By now, we should have seen the National Police Service Commission taking disciplinary action against the person who killed that young man called Masai Dibal. That's what we should be doing to show Gen Z generation that at least there is hope from some sectors of leadership in this country.
All right, I want to just ask you, since we'll come to the recall. El Kunuthia, who is the chair of the National Police Commission Service right now, I wonder if many Kenyans also will be at pains to just try to put maybe even a face to the name when we compare to Kavulundi.
Yeah, you struggle.
Right? When we had Kavulundi as the chair of the National Police Service, then it was more robust.
You struggle.
But I wanted to ask the question of regarding also it has that the chairmanship, the person has to be holding a law degree.
Yeah, you must read it.
Does Kinuthia hold a law degree?
He must. There is no way he could have gotten that position.
Because I don't see it if he...
The constitution is very clear. You are qualified to be appointed a judge of the High Court of Kenya. He must be a lawyer.
15 years experience.
Yes, he must be a lawyer.
Okay. Yes, the chairperson is a graduate of the University of Nairobi with a master's degree in development studies and is pursuing a second master's degree in business administration from Strathmore Business School. He holds a Pan-African EMBA certificate from IECE, University of Navarra, Barcelona. In his undergraduate degree, he studied Bachelor of Education, specializing in mathematics, statistics major. He went to preschool and primary school. These are now downwards now.
So
I can't see any law degree here. So is that really a requirement? And where is it in the Constitution? Maybe
read it. It may not be restricting to the chairman himself, but...
Yeah, that's why I wanted to make it very clear so that you don't mislead the public.
I can make a correction there. 246. At least one of the persons should be a person who is qualified to be appointed as a judge of the High Court of Kenya. 2 retired senior police officers. 3 persons of integrity who have served the public with distinction. The IG of National Police and both Deputy Inspector General of the National Police Service. So the requirement of a person who is qualified to be appointed as a High Court judge may not be a chair, but must sit in that
to guide them.
commission.
To guide them.
But you can see the level of qualification that has been placed on the membership of the National Police Service Commission. Why do you think Kenyans placed such high qualification on the holders of this office? It's because to discipline a police officer, you need men and women who don't recognize this thing you call fear.
So how do we put into account this institution that seems to be a bit moribund, lackluster?
This is the time.
Yeah,
this is the time
to hold them accountable. The disciplinary action, they should tell us who this particular public officer or the security officer was seen with a mask and was shooting. I mean, the videos are just well there. Who actually were abducting?
And he was not uniformed. And we need to know why we are having people who are not uniformed.
Yes, why we have police officers who are in plain clothes.
Because the danger is the ball.
We can't know who is who.
If you allow uniformed police officers to join the crowd and be part of the demonstrators, they can themselves instigate acts of breaking the law. Because you wouldn't know if a police officer is dressed like you and is part of the demonstrators.
Now we also
and then you start blaming the youth.
The demonstrators that actually are doing that.
Yeah, in fact, this is a big indictment on our national police forces. We should not see anybody out there in civilian clothes purporting to quell or not even to quell, to keep peace. Because we quell demonstrations when they are not peaceful. We should not see any ununiformed police officer out there trying to keep peace. We need uniformed police officers in platoons with a commander, and we should know when they left the station who was given, how do you call them, tear gas, who is having rungus, who has been allowed to carry a weapon, who has been given the task of arresting. We should know all that information so that if there is any misconduct today, we as Kenyans can demand for accountability from our police forces, knowing the chain of command when these officers were sent to the streets.
And how many bullets?
How many bullets
they can be accounted for as well.
They were carrying. And I want to know also which countries these that supplies us with tear gas that can blow off the hands of our police officers. I mean, I've tried to Google. I can't understand how a tear gas can blow off the two hands of a police officer.
You're maiming a police officer.
Maiming. No, not blowing off. How do you call this part?
That's the hand itself.
The hand, yes. Yeah. It blew off. Manzo, I want to know which country supplies, because that's accountability card. We need to know, and this one, we are resuming Parliament today. We need to have a full inquiry.
And that would have been used, actually, with that particular tear gas.
Yes.
So they lobbed back the tear gas to the police officer, and it blew.
Did it? I thought they said it was when he was unleashing it, it blew. So I want to know which country is this that has a contract with Kenya to supply us with the tear gas that blows and rips off the hands of our police officers. You know, or was he given a wrong thing? I don't think that
it was faulty. It could have been faulty.
Must have been faulty or poorly manufactured.
Can a faulty tear gas explode and rip off your hands?
That's what we're saying. It was faulty.
No, there is more than meet the eye, Dibal. We need a deeper inquiry on this, because I don't think when you go to the science of making tear gas, a tear gas can explode. I think accidents can happen, but it's not supposed to, have the power of ripping off the hand of the person who is using it. I don't think so. So once this settles, we need to go deep into how our police deal with the Kenyans who are exercising their freedoms under the Constitution. And as I told you, Dibal, we have international standards. We have constitutional standards themselves. Human rights, it says when they are invoking their powers, they must observe human rights, democracy, fundamental rights and freedoms. It's all in our Constitution.
Indeed.
Yeah.
All right, let's also dig deeper in the Constitution and pick the brains of lawyer Dan Mazo. When you want to recall an MP, As it is right now, 204 of them have been marked that they voted yes. And also we have allegations of corruption. Some of them were graced with 2 million shillings. That is not, according to one of the legislators from UDA, which is yet to be verified as well. And if you want to recall these MPs, what is the way forward as far as the Constitution is concerned? Dan Manzo, you can unpack that for us.
Yes, right of recall is under Article 104. And you know 103 gives vacation of office of a member of parliament, how they vacate. But 104 is specific on recall and says the electorate under Article 97 and 98 have the right to recall.
Where are you reading?
104. Article 104 of the Constitution. The electorate under Article 97 and 98 have the right to recall the member of parliament representing their constituency before the end of the term of the relevant House of Parliament. So then it goes on part 2 and says, Parliament shall enact legislation to provide for the grounds on which a member may be recalled and the procedure to be recalled. That relevant law is the election law, and under the election law which has been passed, it tried, you know, there is part of it were held unconstitutional, because you can see the Constitution says up to the end of the term, but they tried to say in 2.5 years. After 2.5 years, you may not be recalled. But
before the end of the term.
The Constitution says before the end,
not up the end.
Before the end of the term.
Yeah.
So then the law says in 2.5 years, which means now we have 6 or 7 months to go, and you can still recall a member of parliament. Now this happens by collection of signatures in the constituency.
So you have to wait for 2 years?
No. In the last 2.5 years, you may not.
I don't know, but I think I think should be Section 45 and Section 46 of the Elections Act provided was that you cannot commence a recall of a member of parliament till after the lapse of 2 years.
That's what I'm asking.
And I think the decision in was it 2016, upheld that section. It says it's reasonable for parliament to provide that you cannot recall a member of parliament before the lapse of 2 years.
2 years.
I think the court upheld it, but
Yes.
let me not say with the authority, but I suspect when the decision was made, the court upheld it. What the court struck off was a provision that said before you recall an MP, you must go to court, get a judgment, then attach that judgment as part of the grounds why you are recalling the MP. The court says that is really taking away the power given to the people under Article 104. Then it said you can also, that section says you can't recall a member of parliament 1 year to an election. I think the court may have agreed also that 1 year is too late. But the window that Kenyans were given is to say after 2 years, you can commence the recall. Okay? So the law on the recall under Article, Section 45 and 46 remains, but as part of it was struck off by the court. And the part that the court struck off was the one that was making it impossible for the people in constituencies to recall their members of parliament. So the only thing...
Why was it made impossible by the courts to...
No, the court first.
The law was making it impossible, but the court struck off the sections that were making it impossible. Like the one I've told you, that before you commence a recall against Mahanzo, you must go to court and say the reason why I want to recall Mahanzo is because he's abused his powers as a member of parliament. The law then was providing that you must convince the court, then he's given a chance to defend himself, then you get a judgment, then you attach that judgment and start a recall. Now the court said that is unconstitutional. That is placing
hurdles
on the people in the constituencies. It was going to make it impossible, according to the court, it was going to make it impossible to recall a member of parliament. So those provisions were struck off the law. They are not part of our law.
Fantastic.
Now that leaves us at the mercy of voters.
So the voters have powers, they know how things as it stands.
That means after August,
after August, it's you, your God, and your people at the constituency level. Now the only...
But it doesn't have to be until August. It can even happen right now.
No, I think the law upheld the provision that says that you can only recall after 2 years.
After 2 years.
I think the court upheld...
Haven't we lapsed 2 years?
2 years is lapsing in August.
It lapses in August.
In August.
Okay. It lapses in August. And then number two,
it's just a month. Just a month.
There is
a month to go.
There is no IBC.
Yes, there's no IBC. But
there is no IBC.
That's what I'm saying. We are on the whole of a dilemma. There is no IBC here. That's why we need an IBC. If we need now recall, there's no IBC.
There's no IBC.
Right, then Mazu, you were supposed to finish this.
Yeah, but still nothing stops Kenyans, you know, from beginning the process. And it begins with the signatures. You go around the constituency. What this Generation Z should do is then go to the constituencies of Kenyans who have abused their privilege of serving their constituents, and then begin collecting the signatures. And these signatures are collected from voters, somebody who is a registered voter. And I can assure you, these signatures can be collected to every single registered voter or anybody who voted for you. And then once you collect these signatures, then you move the process to recall.
And the collecting of signatures right now, it's easy peasy because yeah, we just put a Word document there, and everyone just upload their names, and of course,
upload their names,
especially if it's Gen Z.
Gen Z will do it.
They can do that in a day.
Not even a month. Actually, that in a day you can actually get
you can collect all the signatures to impeach an MP, and that will also be sending a message to these members of parliament who are, getting commanded from State House what to do. It means then it is you, the member of parliament, and the people. Your commander is the people, not the president. And if you refuse, if you disobey the people, then the people recall you.
All right.
And I think that is a sufficient exercise. And I'm encouraging Generation Z to begin in every constituency of each one of these members of parliament who are acting against the people.
And it's dangerous. If you remember, in the US, when people are annoyed with their representatives of Congress, they started a move of collecting signatures to limit the tenure of members of Congress. And they were able to collect enough signatures to force change of law in enough states to make members of Congress serve for limited term of 2 years. What saved the Americans was the Supreme Court that made a judgment that law was unconstitutional, because it was limiting the rights of Americans to offer themselves for elections as members of Congress. So what am I saying? If you are a member of National Assembly, don't sit pretty. Don't ignore the concerns that are being raised by the Gen Z generation. The last vote, by the time we went to the elections last time, the Gen Z population was about 8 million. 8 million Kenyans eligible to vote. Anybody aged between 18 and 34.
What brought in a president?
Now, what should worry us more, by the time we'll be going to the next elections, our projection is that the Gen Z, 18-34, by the time we go to elections, we'll have reached 17.8 million voters. Those are guys who can throw you out of your constituency, even if they don't achieve it now.
And throw you out of presidency.
Yes, even presidency, that's a potent force. It's a potent force, and a force that doesn't recognize or doesn't operate within the confines of our ethnic cocoons. It's a force that is issue-based. It's a force that seems to be hungry for change. It's a force that feels let down. It's a force that is boiling to see that there is meaningful change. They want to see their quality of life change. They want to see their country being transformed. So these are guys you cannot afford to ignore. And technology has made things worse. By the time you say no, within seconds, your name is already out there. So they know whether you're giving attention to the issues they are raising. And if truth be said, we have been extremely unfair to this Gen Z generation. When you look at President Ruto, when he took power, The only people who wanted to deal with under what were his political friends. Anybody who was rejected by this Gen Z. You know, they are the ones who rejected you as a member of parliament or a governor. Then tomorrow they see you minister, they see you a PS, they see you an ambassador. Next week they will see you as a CAS. But nobody is, you know, putting the issues on the table.
Thank you.
Looking for jobs for this Gen Z generation. That's why they are very angry with us.
All right, we'll take a short break right now.
Yeah.
Right.
Gen Z is the future of Kenya.
Right, Gen Z is the future of Kenya. We are on the cusp of change as far as our politics is concerned, just moving forward. And the Gen Z right now, they're saying we're tired, we've had it, and it's our time to try and change the status quo from the draconian of the leadership of the hefty hand that has been on us as far as taxes is concerned. And everyone now is supporting the Gen Z as far as the protests are concerned. We pray that they continue to be peaceful without so much brute force from the police, and also accountability from the police should be, of course, showcased as far as the missing persons are concerned who have been abducted by police and where they are right now. In this epoch of time, transparency is very key. We take a short break. When we circle back, of course, we continue with more, and just to make it limpid moving forward, where does all this head to? As far as the week is concerned, many children are at home right now, and many of you also watching from home because you've not gone to work. As far as, you know, the protest is concerned, just for your own bugbears and fears and trepidation that something might not really go right. But if they're talking about locking the country down, what does it really mean? We take a short break.